India Legal, stories that count.
This week's cover story deals with humanitarian crisis of immense proportions, something that has worried people who believe in human rights over the centuries, and that is the issue of war crimes. Why this has come into focus, this issue, is that while an investigation has been launched into the situation in Ukraine, the International Criminal Court must receive the full support to give the world a robust and effective international criminal justice system. This story is brought to us by Justice Kamaljeet Singh Grewal, formerly a very senior judge of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, who begins his narrative on the issue of war crimes with the Ukraine situation in mind by writing that a bomb thrown in a crowded market or at a bus or an apartment block, or a suicide bomber blowing himself up, leaves behind a toll toll of human lives, suffering and devastation of property. Families are shattered, many men, women and children die. Media reports give all the gory details, but the viewers will never know how the victims felt. Those loved ones were blown up or showed the survivors limp back to continue their lives with a broken leg or an amputated arm. In a few days, the debris of the bombings will get cleared, but the mental devastation and psychological fear in the minds and hearts of victims shall remain, and they will need solace, healing, and comforting. One way, of course, is to catch the people who conspired to throw the bomb and destroy innocent lives, charge, try, and punish them. Such acts of terrorism, writes Justice Kamal Grewal, must be strongly dealt with through the process of law, and all this is done quickly and impartially. In the international arena, acts of invading armies cause huge destruction of buildings, bridges, roads, and railways. In addition, invading soldiers loot, plunder, murder, and rape the vanquished. Such has always been the reality of wars from time immemorial. But things began to change after the Battle of Waterloo and the defeat of Napoleon. The aftermath was dealt with diplomatically by chancellors and prime ministers who met at an international conference to draft treaties and protocols. The most well-known was the Congress of Vienna in 1815, which brought about comparative peace in Europe. Although principalities of Germany united under Prussia, making the former very powerful in Europe under Chancellor Bismarck. If the object of the conference was to protect the Austrian Empire under the Habsburgs from collapse, this was definitely achieved by Count Metternich, as the collapse was put off for another century. Peace was also maintained through a series of détentes and alliances, mostly open but with some secret clauses. Finally, on the fateful day of 1914, the Austrian crown prince was assassinated, peace broke down, and the Great War followed. Justice Grewal says that international crimes are not a subject one deals with in national jurisdictions, though the principles governing trial and punishment for war crimes are not much different. Firstly, there must be a crime or an act which is punishable by law. This means there must be a binding law which lays down which acts are crimes, what are the basic ingredients of the crime, and the punishment for committing them. Then there must be a procedure to investigate the crime and try the people who've been charged for committing it. At the trial, judges hear witnesses, depose, and face cross-examination by the defendant before the verdict of the guilt or innocence is pronounced. The basic principles of law governing criminal trials are internationally recognized in Article 11 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. The various tribunals that were set up earlier sat for fixed terms and were wound up when their judicial tasks were over. The International Criminal Court at The Hague came into existence under the Treaty of Rome as a permanent criminal court on July 1, 2002. The International Criminal Court investigates and tries individuals indicted for the gravest of charges concerning the international community, like genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes of aggression. The court may exercise jurisdiction in a situation where crimes were committed on or after July 1, 2002, and committed by a state party, national, or in the territory of a state party, or in a state that has accepted the jurisdiction of the court. Neither Ukraine nor Russia is party to the ICC, but the ICC does have jurisdiction over this situation because Ukraine issued a declaration granting jurisdiction to the court. It may be noted that India, the US, and China are not parties to the Rome Statute, which has 124 state parties. As Ukraine has submitted to the jurisdiction of the ICC, and 39 state parties of ICC have sent their referrals, the prosecutor has announced his decision to investigate crimes in Ukraine which fall within the jurisdiction of the ICC. Worldwide, cross-border violent crimes will never cease. For this reason, there must be a permanent international criminal justice system to make perpetrators accountable for their acts, to investigate and prosecute them, to prosecute witnesses and compensate victims, and most of all, to hold fair and open trials. You can read this story for free by visiting our website www.indialegallive.com. That's www.indialegallive.com. Until next time, this is Inderjit Badhwar.